one of the important topic from the parasitology, that is about the cystodes. The cystodes are also referred as or termed as tapeworms. Why tapeworms? Because they look like a tape, measuring tape like that. So that is why they have been referred as a tapeworms. These are the largest parasites, again, measuring from few millimeter to few centimeters. And they are important causative agent in the diarrheal diseases. These cystodes generally infect in those people who generally eat beef, pork, or any other meat from for other animals like dog. If it is if infection occurs through the beef, it is termed as the Taenia sagenita, and if it is from the pork, it is called as Taenia solium. And if it is transmitted from dog, it is Diphalobothrium latum. So all these are important cystodes which you have to learn today. And you get one of the SAQ from this chapter is about the differentiating characteristics of Taenia sagenita and Taenia solium. And you also get a couple of MCQs from this chapter. As we go on to learn the cystodes, you will come to know which MCQs they generally ask. Cystode generally includes all the tapeworms. I told you it is looking like, you can see in this picture, it looks like a tape, measuring tape. So that is why it is being referred as a tapeworms. They have suckers and teeth that grasp the host, and this is very important to attach to the intestinal epithelium. When they enter into the body, when they mature into the adult worm, they have to grasp the host, and they do it through the suckers and the teeth. Behind a short neck are repeated parts of the verb, each containing reproductive structures with eggs and sperms. So this is one of the important characteristics. Whatever the reproductive structures are there, like eggs and sperm, they are located in the uh, behind the neck, and it is the repeated parts of the worm, which can be released with the host feces. And these eggs are released in the host feces. The pieces gives the worm a ribbon-like structure or tape-like structure, beneficial for absorbing nutrients from the intestine. So that is why there, if a person suffers from the cystodes and if he feels more hungry, it means that these worms are generally taking all those nutrients or absorbing all those nutrients from the intestine. You can see the picture of the cystode. Now we'll know one by one what are the different parts of the cystode. This word taken from the Greek word kestos. It's nothing but ribbon. So tape like worms. So kestos is ribbon. Cystodes, kestos. It has been taken from the Greek word. Adult worm has a head with suckers. You can see here in the first picture, top picture, which is the head and the suckers. And then the second picture is about the trunk, that is also called as strobila, chain of the proglottids or segments. So this strobila or trunk is made up of different proglottids, or they are also called as segments. So head with the suckers and a body or trunk with the proglottids or the segments. What are the different hosts for these cystodes? The intermediate, we have studied in the introductory lecture of the parasitology. Different types of hosts are there. So intermediate host and definitive host. Most of the time, man is the definitive host. Here it is intermediate host harbors the immature forms of the parasite. So definitive host is always having the mature parasites. Okay. So in the intermediate, it harbors the immature forms of the parasite, insect of herbivorous vertebrate that ingest parasites eggs. So generally in the intermediate host, you have the eggs, and in the definitive host, which harbors the mature forms of the parasite, carnivorous or omnivorous mammal that acquire infection by consuming larval cyst in the uncooked tissue of an infected human. So generally, the definitive host get infection because the meat is not processed or cooked properly, and whatever eggs are there or larvae are there, they get ingested into the definitive host, and there they mature into a adult worm, and they start producing the signs and symptoms in the definitive host. Tapeworms. If we look at the diagram on the left, it has a scolex, it has a neck and strobila, which is also called as trunk. So there are three major parts in the tapeworms. The body plan of adult cystodes includes a scolex like the head, a neck and strobila that can extend for only a few proglottids, or how, depending upon which tapeworm we are studying, it ranges in the length based upon the number of proglottids which they have. The strobila is not truly metameric, though as several organs like the excretory system extended through the entire worm. And what is the proglottid? It is the individual segment of the trunk or strobila. Most worms are very long, again based upon the how many proglottids are there, but they start from the few numbers to the thousands. Most worms are very long, occupying the entire length of the small intestine. So we can find the tapeworms of the entire length of the small intestine. Now coming to the morphology of the tape, and we'll start with the scolex first. The scolex is the part of the worm that anchors it to the intestinal epithelium and prevents that the worm is passed with the digested food. So this scolex is very important to bind to the intestinal epithelium. Otherwise, during eating, while we are eating, it should not pass away with the digested food. So it has to hold, it should hold to the intestinal epithelium. That's why these scolex are there in the cystodes. Different types of scoleces. Some cystodes carry a protrusible rostellum which is armed with the hooks. There are hooks also to have a firm binding, to have a firm attachment. Muscular holdfast organs include suckers or acetabula. Usually there are 4 per scolex. So you can see here in the picture also on the right. And more muscular, both 3D, 4 per scolex. So these are different grooves, muscle grooves, which are there in the scolex. Tapeworm's morphology. Now, after scolex, one of the important part is the trunk, and it is made up of the different proglottids. So we will be knowing about the proglottid. It is budded off from the head and the neck region. So it extends from neck, and it forms with the few proglottids or to the several proglottids. And depending upon that, the length is also either short or the long. Proglottids are hermaphroditic. What does it mean by that? Means both the sexual organs are in the same proglottids, egg producing units. In cross section, the tapeworm body is seen to be filled with the parenchyma. Muscle layers separate the body into an outer cortex and an inner medulla. The reproductive organs are usually in the medulla. Now, strobila. In most cystodes, the scolex is tiny when compared to the strobila, which makes up most of the actual worm. So this is very important because length also depends upon the strobila. The strobila consists of a linear series of proglottids. You can see here in the picture the length of the strobila. So it is, the lady is just to show the comparison about the length of the strobila, nothing else. She was not suffering from the, I don't know whether she was suffering or not, but it may not be. Next time I'll just cover her. The strobila consists of a linear series of proglottids. The tapeworms are hermaphrodites, and each proglottid carries a set of female and male reproductive organs. As I told you, each proglottid has both the reproductive organs, that is male and female. That is why it is called as hermaphrodites. You can see in the picture a reproductive system. The male system consists of numerous testes, vas efferentia, from each testis to the sperm duct. The serous is surrounded by the serous pouch. Most often, the serous pouch and female vagina enter a common chamber, the genital atrium, and share a common opening, the genital pore. So you can see here in the picture. While female genital organ includes a vagina from the genital pore to a seminal receptacle, an ovary, a single oviduct, the ootype, the duct from the seminal receptacle, and the uterus leads from the ootype and may have either an opening or uteropore or end blindly. Proglottids without uteropores detach when gravid. When there is a formation of an egg and it binds with the sperm, then that is called as gravid, and they detach. The egg is formed in the ootype with the contributions from the ovary and the vitellaria or the vitelline gland in some cystodes. So you can see the picture of reproductive system. It is in the same proglottids. That is why it is also called as hermaphrodite. Coming to the classification of cystodes, cystodes are classified based upon the whether it is transmitted from the beef, or it is transmitted from the pork, or it is transmitted from the dwarf. So based upon the meat people eat, so they have been classified in the different classes. Pseudophilidian cystodes, generally slit-like grooves, Bothria. The example is Diphalobothrium latum. I think this I have told you it is a dog tapeworm, but it is the fish tapeworm. Sorry for that. Diphalobothrium latum is the fish tapeworm, and it is classified under the Pseudophilidian cystodes. And Cyclophilidian cystodes are having cup-like and round suckers. That is also called as acetabula. And the important parasites under the Cyclophilidian cystodes include Taenia saginata. This is also called as beef tapeworm. Taenia solium, which is also called as pork tapeworm. Hymenolopsis nana, which is also called as dwarf tapeworm. Generally, these worms are in the intestine. Adult worms stay in the intestine. And dog tapeworm was Echinococcus granulosus. And generally, dog tapeworm has a larval stage in the man. This is the exception from the other tapeworm. So Echinococcus granulosus is the dog tapeworm, while Diphalobothrium latum is the fish tapeworm. So MCQ comes on these 4-5 cystodes. Which among the following is the fish tapeworm, or beef tapeworm, or the pork tapeworm, or the dwarf tapeworm, or the dog tapeworm? So you must know which are these cystodes which are from these different what you can say animals or fish. First, we'll talk about the Diphalobothrium latum, that is also called as fish tapeworm. Definitive host is the man. As I told you, most of the time in parasitic infections, man is the definitive host. But there are two intermediate hosts in this Diphalobothrium latum, that is in the fish tapeworm. One is the Cyclops, which is first intermediate host, and the second intermediate host is the fish. So fish eats the Cyclops, and fish are eaten by the man, and this is how it transmits from first intermediate host to the second, and then to the definitive host. Infective form are pleurocercoid larva. So these are the infective form. Sometimes you get infective form MCQ also, which is among the following is the infective form of the different cystodes. So pleurocercoid larvae is the infective form of the Diphalobothrium latum. And most of the cystodes are transmitted, and the common mode of transmission is the ingestion. If you eat the half-cooked beef or pork or any other meat or fish, it can be a source of infection, that is through the injection. And what is the site of localization? It's always the small intestine. If you look at the life cycle of Diphalobothrium latum, the adult worm which is there in the intestine, then it produces the eggs, and these operculated eggs are passed into the stool of that host, and then they escapes Coracidium, and Cyclops eat Coracidium. So after eggs, they convert into the Coracidium, and these Coracidiums are eaten by Cyclops, and pre-cercoid larvae is there in the Cyclops. This is the infective stage, and fish eats this infected Cyclops, and pre-cercoids larvae are there in the fish now. So if man eats these infected fish, then these plerocercoid larva turns into an adult worm in the human, which is the definitive host. So this is how the life cycle occurs, starting from the adult worm, then to the eggs, then Coracidium, then these Coracidiums are eaten by the Cyclops, where pre-cercoid larva is formed. This is there in the fish. These Cyclops are eaten by the fish, and then fish, if it is half cooked, eaten by the man, it turns out to be adult worm. You can see here in the picture. This is taken from the Center for Disease Control, CDC website. Common in fish eating carnivores with little host specificity: salmon, trout, perch, whitefish, eel, pike, etc. are the fish which are having, these larval stage in their body, in their digestive system, and from there it can get transmitted to the adults. Get quite long, 10 meter, and shed up to 1 million eggs per day. So very huge amount of eggs are liberated, and these eggs must reach water for embryonation. Of course, for a complete cycle, all these stages must go through the favorable conditions. So to embryonate, the eggs must go to the water, and after several days, a Coracidium hatches through the operculum and is eaten by the opod. These Cyclops are then eaten by the fish, and then if fish is eaten by the man, the infection is transmitted to the man, who is the definitive host. As I already told you, Diphalobothrium is latum is the fish tapeworm. Definitive host is the fish-eating carnivores, that is the men. Even dogs and bears are also there, but we are talking about the humans now. Infection of humans causes no or little symptoms. Most of the time it goes asymptomatic, but you can feel abdominal discomfort, nausea, nausea, diarrhea are rare. The parasites takes up the large amount of vitamin B12. So this is something which is unique to this tapeworm. In patients with genetic deficiency in vitamin B12 uptake, the parasite competes effectively for the entire vitamin, leading to severe pernicious anemia. That is why majority of the people, if the anemia is there due to the parasitic infection, it is because there is a genetic deficiency in the vitamin B12, which is uptaken by the parasites, which competes effectively for the entire vitamin. That is the main cause of the severe pernicious anemia. If you look at the geographic distribution of the D-latum, it is mainly found in the northern Chile, Japan, Korea, and North America. How do you diagnose and treat these cases? This, on the basis of disease, mainly it is digestive disturbance and vitamin B12 deficiency. These are the two important signs which can tell you about that the person is suffering from some cystoid infection. A diagnosis: you can detect the operculated eggs segments in the stool because they are passed into the stool of the humans, and the treatments are generally treated with the antiparasitic drugs like niclosamide or praziquantel. These are the two drugs which are used to treat the Diphalobothrium latum. Now coming to the next, Echinococcus granulosus, which is also called as dog tapeworm. Definitive host is the dog or wolves. Intermediate host is the pigs, grazing animals, and man is occasional, sometimes occasional. Infective forms are the eggs. Here, infective form is the egg. Mode of transmission, again, ingestion. If you look at the mode of transmission, is the same for all the parasitic infection, that is ingestion. And site of localization is not the intestine, but liver, lung, or any other organ. Echinococcus multilocularis is another species in this: alveolar Echinococcus coccosis, invasive solid lesions of firm consistency, full of connective tissue and a jelly-like material is there in this type of species. And Echinococcus granulosus, cystic echinococcosis, which is produced cystic lesions. If you look at the life cycle, the intermediate host sheep, which grazes the grass where the eggs are found, they turn into a cyst, and then they are eaten by the dogs, final host, and then they releases the egg. So generally, this is the normal life cycle. Man is an accidental host, basically. Adult E. granulosa, adult worms live in the intestine of the dogs. They produce eggs which are shared with the feces. Eggs are infective to herbivores generally. Herbivores means the sheep and all that. And sometimes humans, because we also eat vegetables. So if it get contaminated with the stool of a dog, it might get infected. Okay. The oncosphere penetrate intestine of intermediate host and develops into a hydatid. So hydatid disease is also known as the infection from the Echinococcus granulosus. Hydatids are spherical fluid. You can see in the picture, spherical fluid filled cysts surrounded by a granuloma formed by the host. So hydatid disease can also be one of the SAQ in your examination. So this is produced by the Echinococcus granulosus. This can also be one of the MCQ also. Hydatids can be found in several organs, but are most frequently found in the liver. Liver cyst causes liver swelling, right epigastric pain, nausea, and vomiting. These could be the symptoms in the patient who had hydatid cyst in their body. In the obstruction of bile ducts and blood vessels can cause cholangitis, jaundice, cirrhosis, and portal hypertension. So these are the different complications of the hydatid disease. Lung cysts are often well tolerated, but obstruction and or rupture can cause chest pain, cough, and dyspnea. So when they enter into a lung, they remain quite for a long time without harming the host. But if it ruptures or if it forms an obstruction, then it may lead to the chest pain, cough, and dyspnea. The first symptom of brain cyst is often focal epilepsy. And the diagnosis is by serology, radiology, CT scan, and sonograms. These can be used to diagnose the Echinococcus granulosus or hydatid cyst. Treatment is surgical. Generally, you have to remove that. Prognosis depends on the size and location of the hydatid cyst. Mortality is there, which is up to 5 to 10%, which is quite high. Because if it obstruct the lungs, the patient may die because of the breathing problem, respiratory distress, and all that. Hydatid is often injected with the sterilizing fluids to avoid metastasis. And benefit of chemotherapy is inconsistent, so it cannot be helpful in these diseases. Sylvatic and domestic strains possesses these cystode. Strains adapted to dogs and sheep are more aggressive upon human infection. If human get infected, it may lead to a dangerous also. Echinococcosis can be locally quite important. Control of feral dogs, limit access of dogs to sheep, offal, treat pet dogs regularly. That is why if you have a dog, you have to be very careful because you may infect with by accident, of course, with the hydatid disease, Echinococcus granulosus. Effective control programs includes that have been included in several countries like New Zealand, Tasmania, Cyprus, and Iceland. So they could be able to curtail the disease transmission. This picture shows you the actual life cycle of the Echinococcus. Sylvatic zoonosis. This is also a zoonotic called as zoonotic disease. Humans get infected by eating contaminated berries and mushrooms collected in the forest populated by foxes. That's why man can be a accidental host for this. Life cycle, it passes the adult parasite in the foxes, and then a principal definite host like such as dogs, or there are certain other animals also. And then it has a proglotid with the eggs with oncosphere. Infection occurs from these eggs A rodent infected with the metacystodes, and rodent's liver with metacystodes can also, that also present in that, and single metastostode cyst with prostoscolesis. So this is the life cycle of the Echinococcus. Multilocar is alveolar or multilocar hydatid. Hydatid grows like a sponge through entire liver. You can see in the picture. Symptoms closely mimic cirrhosis or hepatos or carcinoma. So it could be, differential diagnosis with the carcinoma of the liver. Metastasis can form in the lung or brain. Prognosis is very poor and depends on the extent of organ involvement, how much or at what degree it is infected in the organs. This is the hydatid cyst. If you get a SEQ, you have to write about you have to draw the diagram of the hydatid cyst. We can see here the protoscolex, and then germinal layer, all those, okay, and daughter cyst and all that. The cycle is lined by a cyst is lined by the multi-layer parasite tissue, with the innermost layer being the germinal layer. You can see in the picture. This layer is undifferentiated stem cell layer that can spawn the formation of brood capsules, which are themselves lined by GL. The daughter cyst, the encircled body bud, it comes out as a bud. Actually, it looks like a bud. Into the center of the fluid filled with the cyst. This is a very small portion of the cyst which may become quite large. This can become in the large size. Each of the smaller bodies will develop into a diminutive tapeworms. This should be eaten by a definitive or final host such as the canine. Thousands of prostoscoleces can fill the hydatid cyst. That is also called as hydatid sand. Protoscoleces are the infective stage for the dogs. This is infective stage for the dog. And hydatids usually grow slowly but steady, 1 to 5 centimeter per year. So if it remains for a long time, it becomes larger and larger and difficult for the patients to perform the surgery to remove this hydatid cyst. They are usually well tolerated until their size becomes a problem, or if they rupture. And if the cyst ruptures or leakages, can result in the allergic reaction and metastasis. So people may feel the allergic reaction if that hydatid cyst is ruptured. Because of that fluid, the patient shows the hypersensitivity reaction. So the cyst which is there in the intermediate is eaten by a definitive host, that is dog. Larva escapes, adult worm, and then these adult worm passes the eggs and they are discharged into the stool, and they are contaminated with the grass and all that, and that is taken by the other host, and then by accident it reaches to the humans, and generally the primary organ is either liver or the lung. Diagnosis: it's a disease. Name is hydatid cyst or hydatid disease. Non-specific, or maybe it is asymptomatic, because the time required for that hydatid cyst to grow is quite long. 60% right hypochondriac pain is there, 15% jaundice, other like skin rashes. These rashes, pruritus, allergic reaction is because of the rupture of that cyst. Cyst can rupture leading to bronchobiliary fistula. A diagnosis can be done by aspiration, is contraindicated, but you can perform the X-rays, ultrasonography, CT scan, MRI. Castaneous intradermal test can be used. You can also perform the indirect hemoagglutination or the ELISA test to find out the antibodies. Drug is not curative. The only treatment or management is to perform the surgery. Okay, but there are certain drugs which can be used to act as an adjunct to kill the spilled scolecysis, albendazole, mebendazole. But definitely you need to do the surgery to remove the cyst. Now coming to the Taenia life cycle. Taenia, that is Saginatine solium. Humans are the only definitive host. So in this, it is the humans are the definitive host. Eggs can survive for days to months in the environment. The adult worm attaches by their scolex to the human small intestine, and so the scolex are very important. The adults produce proglottids passed with the stool. You can find the proglottids or you can find the eggs under the stool of the humans. The eggs are released after the proglottids are passed with the feces because the eggs are there in the proglottids. Taenia saginata is nothing but the beef tapeworm. This is again one of the MCQ. Definitive host is the only man. Intermediate host is the cattle. Length you can see 5 meter, so it is quite long. Maximum reported as 25 meters, so it is quite long. Infective forms is the this is very important. Infective form in the Taenia saginata is Cysticercus bovis, and for that it is Cysticercus cellulosa for the pork tapeworm. The mode of transmission is ingestion, and the site of localization is the small intestine. So Taenia saginata is also called as beef tapeworm, ranges in length from 6 to 30 feet, which is quite long. Geographic distribution, cosmopolitan, most common where poor sanitation and no inspection of meat combines. Africa and South America has more infections. Transmission is generally by ingestion of larval from uncooked beef. In North America, 1 in 100 is infected because they eat beef so often. So the chances of infections are very high. In third world nations could be up to 10% because of the easily availability, cheap and all that. And if the uncooked food is there. No symptoms or some abdominal discomfort is seen. A diagnosis is generally done by the egg, finding the eggs or proglottids in the feces. And if you look at the solium, which is the pork tapeworm, solium also has a scolex with 4 suckers and a double crown of hooks, a narrow neck and a large strobila that is 2 to 4 meter, consisting of several hundred proglottids. So each proglottids, there are several hundred proglottids in the Taenia solium. About 2 months after ingestion, proglottids begin to detach from the distal end and are excreted in the feces. Each segment contains 50 to 60,000 fertile eggs. Okay, so this is the how it sheds into the environment, and from there again it is infected to the humans. Endemic in less developed countries because their personal sanitation programs are good. Their all other awarenesses are quite good in the developed countries. So it is very less endemicity is seen in these countries where pigs are raised as a food source because they take good care of these pigs because that is their food source. Latin America, most of Asia, sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of the Oceania. Infection with the adult forms of the parasite produces similar symptoms of the infection with the saginata. So symptoms are similar. Human cysticercosis, when human plays the role of the intermediate host. When humans are the intermediate host, that time larval stage develop into the human host. Sometimes man becomes the intermediate host where larval stage is developed. Humans acquire cysticercus through the fecal oral contamination with the Taenia solium eggs. The oncospheres in the eggs is released by the action of gastric acid and intestinal fluid. They cross the gut wall and enter into the bloodstream. This is very dangerous. And then they carry it to the muscles and other tissues. They insist as cysticerci at small terminal vessels, and neurocysticercosis or ophthalmic cysticercus serous infections can be seen in this patient. You can see these CT scans. The parasite infect the central nervous system. Epileptic seizures are found in these patients because of this infection into the brain. Intracranial hypertension, hydrocephalus, or both can be found in these patients. This syndrome is related to the location of the parasites in the cerebral ventricles or basal cisterns. Occasionally, a cyst may grow larger, which is also called a giant cyst. You can see on the right. Geographical variation in clinical manifestation. If you do the pathology of cysticercus, the cysts are rounded or oval vesicle from a few millimeters to 1 to 2 centimeter. Most common location is in the cerebral hemispheres, mainly at the junction of the gray and white matter, which is very dangerous. Cysts can be found in the cerebellum, ventricles, brainstem, basal cisterns, and spine. Viable cysts have a translucent membrane through which the scolex is visible. Cysts degenerate, the fluid becomes opaque and dense and edges irregularly and shrink. Calcification starts in the cephalic portion and leaves a whitish calcified nodule. You can see in the picture. How do you diagnose cysticercosis? Serological diagnosis can be done. Antibody assays for cysticercosis, antigen detection assays, circulating antigen means live parasites you can detect, ongoing viable infection. Monoclonal antibodies seems to detect the immunoglobulins, antigens in the CSF, not immunoglobulins. Antibody assays can be used. There are different assays available for detection of the antibodies, TSE33, TSE38. Uh, then neuroimaging diagnosis is helpful for detecting the cysticercosis. How do you treat? Treatment should be individualized based on the cyst location, level of inflammation, and clinical presentation. Therapy should include analgesic, anti-epileptic drugs, cysticidal drugs, surgical resection of lesions, and placement of ventricular shunts. Parenchymal cysticercosis with viable cyst, albendazole can 50 milligram per kg per day with dexamethasone, that is praziquantel. Subarachnoid clinical complications, antiparasitic therapy can be used. No reason to use antiparasitic drugs to treat dead calcified cyst because already it is dead. Symptomatic therapy is used, and surgical therapy is one of the important treatment for getting rid of this infection. Transmission, you do not get naturally by eating pork. Ingestion of infected pork only causes adult tapeworm infestation. And here we don't call it as infection. Call it as infected pork contains only the larval cyst that develop into adult worms in the human intestine. Transmit these cysticercus, that is and most common source of infective eggs. A symptom-free tapeworm carry in the household. You can see the symptomless person in the house, and if that person is preparing food, can be a source of infection. So life cycle, adult worm, which is there in the intestine, which releases the eggs into the stool. They are eaten or ingested by the cattle, and they release the oncospheres, and they and then blood to muscles. They go, and that is why it is called as cysticercus bovis. And if the man eats this undercooked beef, which has the muscles in which the cysticercus bovis is there, and there it starts producing the adult worm. Diagnosis and treatment: digestive disturbances is the disease symptoms, and then diagnosis by detecting the eggs or the segments in the stool. Treatment: niclosamide or praziquantel. Taenia solium, man is the definitive host, which is the pork tapeworm. Intermediate host is the pig. Infective form cysticercus cellulose or eggs also. Mode of transmission, of course, ingestion, and site of location is the small intestine. What happens even if in the same, if you see the Sejanida and solium, the life cycle is more or same. Only the difference is between the cattle and here it is the pig. Eggs are passed from the man, which are ingested by the pigs. Oncosphere released, which is the reach into the intestine, then to the muscle. It is called as cysticercus cellulose, which is eaten by the man, and then it is formed into an adult worm. Similarly, diagnosis and treatment like Sagenata only, digestive disturbances are seen in the patient. Neurocysticercosis is seen in the 60% of patient in the pork tapeworm. Eggs, segments are useful in the diagnosis. You can also perform the ultrasonography, CT scan, MRI, and ELISA test to detect the antigen or antibody. Treatment: niclosamide, praziquantel, or albendazole. You can see here the difference between the solium uterus of the solium, which has the 7 to 13 branches, and while the sagenite is 15 to almost double branches are there in the uterus of the sagenite. The last one is the Hymenopsis nana, dwarf tapeworm. A definitive host is the man. Intermediate host is no intermediate host is there. Infective forms are eggs. Internal infection, that is auto infection, is common in the Hymenopsis nana. So man itself is the definitely intermediate host. So ingestion is the mode of location is the small intestine. You can see here the adult worm passes through. It is again ingested by the man, releases on the oncospheres, and it is turned into a cysticercoid larvae. And Scolex is released in the intestine, and it develops into the adult worm. Again, diagnosis treatment, digestive disturbances, eggs or segments in the stool can be detected. Niclosamide or praziquantel can be used as a drug of choice. This is the life cycle of the Hymenoleucopsis nana, taken from the CDC website. You can see the eggs. Generally, the patients are asymptomatic. Very high burden can lead to a unspecific gastrointestinal symptoms. The infections are cleared with the adolescence. It gets automatically cleared. The diagnosis by the demonstration of the eggs. You can see the eggs. Typical eggs are detected from the stool. This is something I don't want to read it now. There is some tale from a Dr. Rita Mani, senior resident from the neuromicrobiology. Anyway, I don't have time to read it out, but sometime we'll read out about this. Okay. So I think we have done. So you need to remember about the cystoses, because this is one of the important chapter from the parasitology, and you can get the SAQ mainly, not the LAQ. Okay, I think I have done. Is that okay? Who has taken the attendance? Okay, fine. Thank you. So I'm just stopping my presentation.
Yes, sir, I've taken.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.